The night was eerily quiet as our police cruiser sliced through the darkness, sirens painting streaks of red and blue across the midnight sky. I sat in the back seat, sandwiched between forensic kits and a creeping sense of dread. Officer Mark Thompson drove with laser focus. The radio crackled. Possible homicide. Get to Maple Heights apartments immediately. Maple Heights was a new development, quiet, safe, or so everyone thought. As we pulled up, the building was already swarming with patrol cars and curious onlookers. The apartment complex looked normal from the outside, but inside, something horrifying waited. A neighbor, pale and shaking, told us what happened. He and his girlfriend were asleep when something wet started dripping onto their pillows from the ceiling. At first, they thought it was a water leak, but the drips grew thicker, redder, until it splashed onto their faces. It was blood. Terrified, they ran upstairs and found the door to the apartment above slightly ajar. They called the police immediately. Mark and I entered the crime scene with the team. The apartment was eerily neat, almost too neat, but the smell of iron and death hung heavy. In the bedroom, we found the victim, a young woman, later identified as Emily Lou, lying face down beside her bed. Her head was a ruined mess of blood and bone, her dark hair soaked. The pool of blood beneath her had seeped through the floorboards, dripping onto the apartment below. Drawers were overturned, her purse emptied on the bed, but her wallet was missing. It looked like a robbery, but something didn't sit right with me. Emily's clothes were intact, and there were no signs of sexual assault. If this were a burglary gone wrong, why the brutality? Mark noticed it too. He quietly told the crime scene team to look for signs of forced entry, but the door's lock was intact. Near the entryway, we found Emily's keys lying just inside the door, suggesting she'd been attacked right as she came home. The medical examiner arrived and examined her injuries. 7 blows to the head, most concentrated on the right side. Mark explained, she was first struck from behind on the left side, knocking her unconscious. Then, as she lay helpless, the killer struck her over and over on the right, ensuring she couldn't survive. We scoured the apartment. Then, in a shadowed corner by the door, I noticed something odd. A pair of men's slippers, neatly placed. They didn't match anything Emily owned. Mark took a swab from the soles that tested positive for Emily's blood. But how could her blood get on slippers so far from where she fell, if they weren't worn during the attack? As we bagged evidence, Mark spoke softly. If this was a random burglary, would the killer take time to change into house slippers? Or was he comfortable here familiar? The possibility chilled me. This was someone Emily knew. Back at the morgue, as we examined Emily's body, Mark pointed out a tiny belly button ring. Inside the band, almost invisible, were etched initials, JTH. That detail felt intimate, something given by a lover, not a stranger. We tracked the initials to Jason Thomas Hale, a man who, according to Emily's friends, had been infatuated with her for years. Jason worked as a local cab driver, and I remembered seeing a nervous, pale man waiting outside the morgue earlier, who introduced himself as the family's driver. He'd kept his right hand awkwardly bandaged. I recalled Mark's words. If the killer's dominant hand was injured, he might have been forced to use his weaker hand, explaining the odd strike patterns. Jason's bandaged right hand now looked like a glaring red flag. The next morning, we brought him in for questioning. Jason insisted he and Emily were just friends, but his stories were full of contradictions. His car was searched, and hidden in the trunk was a bloodied wrench, the perfect blunt weapon, wiped mostly clean but with blood residue hidden deep in the crevices. DNA tests confirmed the blood belonged to Emily. Confronted with the evidence, Jason broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. He confessed, "She promised we'd be together forever, but then she cut me off, said she was seeing someone else." I waited outside her building night after night. When she finally came home, I just snapped. I couldn't bear the thought of losing her. Mark and I sat in silence as the sun rose over Riverfield. We'd solved another brutal case, but it felt hollow. Emily had trusted someone who turned her love into obsession, a reminder that sometimes the greatest danger comes from those who stand closest to us.